Welcome to Cage Theory. If you are new here, subscribe right now because we cover the fights, the drama, and every single thing the UFC does not want you to miss. And today's video is exactly why this channel exists. Dana White stood at that press conference and watched everything nearly fall apart in real time. And his face said absolutely everything you needed to know before he even opened his mouth. Josh started screaming across the stage at Alex Pereira and Ilya, and the entire room shifted in a single second. The energy went from controlled chaos to something that felt genuinely dangerous, and every person in that building felt it hit them at once. Dana has seen thousands of tense moments in the sport, and even he looked like he was calculating every possible outcome at the same time. The only thing running through his mind in that moment was making sure nobody ended up injured over something that meant absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of the sport. He hates when fighters put their bodies at risk during confrontations that have zero sporting value, and he made that crystal clear without hesitating. One wrong move in a hallway, at a press conference, or during a face-off can derail an entire card, and Dana knows exactly how fast that spiral begins. He said situations like that are just goofy, and that word alone tells you everything about how seriously he refused to take it, even while clearly being furious. The moment Alex Pereira stood up, security moved, and everyone in that room understood exactly how close things were to going completely sideways. Dana emphasized that these moments look fun on social media, but behind every viral clip is a team of people holding their breath, hoping nothing breaks. When you strip all the noise away from that press conference, there was still a story that actually mattered, and it happened inside the cage, where it always should. An unranked fighter walked into that arena and destroyed the number 5 ranked contender in the division, and the MMA world had no idea it was coming. Dana saw it and immediately gave credit, because that is what he does when the performance earns it, regardless of the hype around it. He said moments like that are exactly why the UFC exists, and why the cage is the only place where rankings and reputations mean absolutely nothing. One fight, one night, one performance can rewrite a fighter's entire future and erase years of hierarchy built through careful matchmaking and political positioning. That upset sent shockwaves through the division, and those shockwaves do not disappear after one news cycle. They reshape everything that comes after them. That kind of result is the reason fans stay locked in week after week, because you genuinely never know who's walking out with their hand raised until the final horn. The fighter nobody expected delivered the moment everyone is still talking about, and that is the sport working exactly the way it was designed to work. Dana's reaction said it all, and fighters who got overlooked for years take moments like this and build entire careers on the momentum they create overnight. The cage is the great equalizer, and no press conference chaos, no ranking system, and no narrative can change what happens when the door closes and the fight begins. Sean Strickland opened up about his next move, and the name that came out of his mouth immediately had the entire middleweight division paying attention all over again. He confirmed that Nassourdine Imavov is the most likely opponent for his return, and the MMA world immediately started running the tape on what that fight looks like. The first time these two met, Strickland handled him, and it was not particularly close, but that was a completely different version of Imavov than the one fighting today. Since that loss, Imavov has gone on a run that has turned him into a legitimate contender and one of the most improved fighters in the entire division right now. Strickland winning that rematch is not as simple as people are assuming based on the first fight, and anyone who thinks it is has not been watching Imavov closely enough. The stakes are enormous, because a loss here would be devastating, and a win would put Strickland right back in the middle of the title conversation immediately. Both fighters have evolved since that first meeting, and the rematch carries a level of unpredictability that the first fight simply never had when the two of them were on different levels. Strickland is locked in, and Imavov is dangerous, and if this fight gets made and gets confirmed, the middleweight division is about to get very interesting very fast. The matchup has every ingredient needed to be a war, and the history between these two only adds another layer of tension that fans cannot ignore once the contract is signed. Watch the space, because the moment an official announcement drops, the entire division is going to react, and the buildup is going to be unlike anything we've seen in months. Then Strickland shifted and went directly at Khamzat, and what he revealed about that 5th round is something every serious MMA fan needs to hear, because it changes everything about how you watch that fight. He described the moment where Khamzat pointed at him and said, "Let us give the fans what they want, and let us have a real fight." And Strickland believed him. He lowered his guard slightly because he thought the moment was genuine, and that one decision in a fraction of a second changed the entire remainder of that round. Khamzat immediately shot for a takedown the moment Strickland gave him the opening, and Strickland ended up against the cage feeling like he had been completely played. He was talking to himself during the scramble, furious, overwhelmed, repeating in his own head that he should never have trusted that exchange for even a single second. The frustration he described was visceral and raw, and you could hear it in his voice even retelling it after the fight was already done and finished. He admitted he was extremely salty and even laughed about it, but underneath the humor was a fighter who genuinely could not believe he fell for it in that moment. That sequence taught him something permanent about elite-level fighting, and about the difference between what a fighter says inside the cage and what they actually do with the opening you give them. He said moments like that change you, and they make you process every feint, every word, and every level change with a completely different level of skepticism going forward. Strickland will never give that moment away again, and the lesson he took out of that fight against Khamzat is going to show up in every single performance he delivers from here on out. He was direct about what that fight confirmed for him, and it was not weakness, it was data, and he's already processing it into something that makes him harder to beat. Every second in a high-level fight matters, and Strickland understands that better than almost anyone currently competing at the top of the middleweight division right now. He said Chimaev has earned his way back through consistency, and he respects that, but respect doesn't mean he's going to hand over anything when they meet inside the cage again. He's focused on finishing strong and proving that his place at the top of this division is not a one-time story, but a permanent statement that nobody can argue with results. He wrapped everything up by making it clear that he refuses to be caught off guard in the same way twice, because that's not who he is as a competitor at this level. His mental approach after the Khamzat fight is sharper, more calculating, and more deliberate, and that evolution is exactly what separates fighters who plateau from the ones who keep climbing. He's locked in and ready, and every piece of the Khamzat fight that stung is now being converted into fuel for whatever comes next on his schedule. The version of Strickland walking into that next fight is carrying every hard lesson from the last one, and any opponent who underestimates that growth is making a very dangerous mistake. His career has always been built on proving people wrong, and the motivation after that decision loss is the kind that makes fighters do their absolute best work when it matters most. He's not done, and the middleweight division is going to feel that the moment he steps back inside the octagon with everything he's learned and everything he's still hungry to prove. Dricus du Plessis stepped forward the moment the decision was announced and said something that immediately set the internet on fire across every MMA platform simultaneously. He looked straight at the result and declared himself the world champion again, and the logic he used to back it up is genuinely hard to argue with when you follow it closely. He said he beat Strickland twice, and Strickland just beat Khamzat, which means the math in his mind is very simple, and he's not shy about saying it out loud to anyone who will listen. He called it a great fight by Strickland, and said exactly what he predicted was going to happen, that Khamzat was never going to be able to keep him on the ground long enough to change the outcome. He said it's so hard to keep Strickland down, and that anyone who underestimates his grappling defense is setting themselves up for exactly the kind of performance we just watched. Dricus had no doubt about how the fight would unfold, and watching it play out in real time only deepened his confidence in everything he already believed about both fighters going in. Championship fights are decided in the margins, and Dricus understands the margins of this division better than almost anyone currently competing at the top of the division right now. He's not making noise for the sake of noise. He's connecting results in a logical sequence and daring anyone in the sport to tell him the math doesn't add up the way he sees it.